Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be talking about the melee for the soldier and the demo man, the pain train. I feel the pain train is often overlooked by much of the TF2 player base, dismissed for not giving the wearer something that can directly help him or her in combat. Its stats have absolutely nothing to do with actually hitting people or with meleeing of any kind, which makes it a pretty standout choice. The pain train stats are super straightforward, one upside and one penalty. The wearer is granted a +1 capture rate at the cost of a 10% bullet damage vulnerability. Based on these stats, the pain train is the epitome of situational weapons. You get something that will help you out in certain situations at a cost. So to start, what does +1 capture rate even mean? When the pain train is equipped as your melee, you capture objectives such as control points and payloads at the speed of 2 players, or in other words, at the speed of a scout. One important note is that the weapon does not have to be deployed for this bonus. You can have any of your weapons out when capping. So what about the +10% bullet damage vulnerability? Throwing out a percentage like that sounds threatening, but what does it actually translate to in-game damage-wise? Well, first off, the most important affected weapons include the scattergun, the sniper rifle, the shotgun, the minigun, sentry guns, to name a few. 10% may sound like a lot to you, but in my opinion, it's nowhere near a deal breaker, except maybe a deal breaker for keeping it equipped at all times. I've done some first grade game theory math for you guys, so here's some shit laid out. The scattergun does a base damage of 60, which becomes 66 with the pain train. It also ramps up at point blank to 105 or 116 with the pain train. So basically, scattergun doing 3 to 105 damage, it's going to do 0 to 11 more with the pain train, so nothing earth-shattering. As demonstrated in the TF2 Wikis video, this may grant the scattergun the ability to 2-shot you when 3 shots would be necessary otherwise, but only by an extremely small margin of health and at a very specific distance, so once again, not super earth-shattering. The shotgun, similar to the scattergun, is going to do 0 to 9 more damage per shot depending on range and how many pellets hit. Now with the sniper rifle, no-scopes are going to do 55 rather than 50, full charged body shots and non-charged headshots will do 165 rather than 150, and a fully charged headshot, which frankly doesn't even matter since it would kill you anyways unless you had a vaccinator buff, will do 495 rather than 450. To put those numbers into perspective, Demo's max health is 175 or 260 overhealed, and Soldier's is 200 and 300 overhealed, so take note that a sniper may not have to charge their shot quite as long to take you out with a headshot due to the pain train, although this time difference is quite minute. The minigun's extra damage will not be super noticeable considering 10 pellets with a base damage of 9 are fired every second, although it is definitely something you should take note of, especially if it's a pub or something and there's multiple heavies on the enemy team. Sentries I'd put in the same basket as miniguns. 10% isn't anything crazy, but do keep in mind that if there's a sentry spot you need to take out without Uber, or if there's a lot of mini sentry stuff going on, sentries are going to kill you, well, 10% faster. So now that I've gone over how the bullet damage vulnerability affects the wearer of the pain train, let's go over the actual strategy of the weapon and when to use it. Now the first question is, which class, if one of them, is the pain train more useful for? This is kind of a complex question because there's a lot to consider here. First off, the soldier has a variety of utility melee weapons, meaning melee weapons that serve a purpose different from bludgeoning in someone's skull. In other words, soldier's got options like the escape plan and the disciplinary action. With Demo Man, on the other hand, the pain train is really his only utility melee. To state it as simply as possible, a demo man isn't sacrificing his melee slot nearly as badly as a soldier by equipping the pain train. I wouldn't say the pain train is off limits to soldier though by any means. I'd instead say it's less viable for prolonged use, aka it's more situational. On the topic of maps, control point maps are where the pain train shines the most, although it can maybe be used for Koth too if you feel it's necessary for the situation at hand, like there's 30 seconds left, your team doesn't have the point, and you're about to respawn. Soldiers already have the ability to backcap like scouts due to rocket jumping allowing for fast mobility, but with the pain train it's made easier because of the faster cap time. As demo man, using the pain train can also come in handy for backcapping or even just for capping a hotly contested point a little bit faster. So when exactly should you equip the pain train? As soldier, it's best to use it during stalemating CP rounds if a backcap is possible, although I wouldn't advise keeping it equipped at all times. You're probably best off simply using it when a situation where you can go for an aggressive cap arises. If you're not going for aggressive point captures and are instead just pushing alongside teammates who will be capping with you, the pain train just gives you unnecessary bullet vulnerability. If that's the case, switch to something else like the escape plan that'll give you a utility that's useful for your playstyle. For demo, on the other hand, the pain train is less situational and more viable for prolonged use on CPU maps where you're not necessarily going going for risky captures, instead just playing as you normally would. I feel this way, again, because Demo doesn't have the same alternatives as Soldier. He's not missing out on a utility like the escape plan's run speed by equipping the Pain Train. That is, unless you're playing Demo Knight, which is a whole other story. Now, if you want to talk comp, I think the Pain Train's better for 6s, although a Soldier could pull off a crazy backcap with it in a Highlander game from time to time, but still, I wouldn't recommend keeping it equipped at all times as Soldier. Equipped it only when it comes in handy. As for Demo, it's the same deal as I described earlier basically. It's not going to be very detrimental if you equip it, but do keep Demo's role in mind. If you're not capping, there's no point in equipping it. That being said, I have seen it used in 6s. Now for pub play, if the enemy team consists of 4 heavies, 3 lime-painted cosmetic scouts, 5 engineers, level 3s up the Wuha, fucking 8 mini sentries, maybe weigh out some other choices. And that's where I'm going to wrap up this video. In summary, the Pain Train is underrated. I urge you to try the thing out for clutch situations, or just for if you like going for aggressive point captures on CP maps. If you like this video and you haven't, sub for more stuff like this. That being said, have an awesome rest of your day or night, and peace out.